In this session we're going to make this missile do some damage. Now the missile itself contains a capsule, and that capsule has a collider attached to it. Now the code is actually here to control it on the actual missile, the parent object. So I'm going to disable this capsule collider on the mesh itself, and I'm going to put a capsule collider on the missile itself. So in physics, capsule collider. Now it happens to go along the z-axis, so I'm going to change the direction to the z-axis, and I'm going to edit the collider, stretch it to each end, and bring it into the shape of the... Okay, that fits the missile. And I'm going to make this a trigger. Right, so now if we look at the missile control script, that's all we've got so far, but we've got an on trigger enter now. And this will give us information about any objects or any colliders that the missile bumps into. For the moment, I'm not going to do the damage yet. I'm just going to do a bit of investigation. A very useful feature is this debug.log, which will give you information about what's happening. And what I want to do is to display what the missile has bumped into. So this is going to be the other, which is the other collider, and then have a look at its game object and .name. So that should display the name of anything that it bumps into. Okay, let's save that and back to Unity. Right, having made those changes, I'm going to apply it back to the So now the prefab missile also has this code in it. Should we just check that? Right, there we are. So it also has the collider, which is a trigger. Lovely. Okay. Let's delete that one because we're going to instantiate our own collider here. Now I've opened another window, which is the console window. Where is it? That's just down at the bottom. And we've got it here. I'm just going to run the program, and we'll let the missile hit. So here comes the enemy. It's about to fire the missile. Right. Good. So we'll stop that. And then we look at the objects it's hit. So first of all it hit my ship, and then it hit the engine. So it came through the ship and hit the engine. Now I'm not particularly interested in it hitting the engine, but I'm looking at my ship. Right. So I'm going to just make a few changes here. So in the Defender we've got these meshes. The main one is my ship, and it has a mesh collider there which we've made convex, and it's got the engine. Now, I'm not interested in it hitting the engine, so I'm going to disable that mesh collider, and we'll run it again. Right, so now if we look at the console, it's just hit this one object, my ship, because we've disabled the collider on the engine. Now, the missile knows that it's hit the ship now, so what's it going to do when it does so? Well, it'll destroy it. Yes. So, and that's going to involve explosions, isn't it? So I suggest we make some explosions here. We can do it by creating an empty object. We can make this. So, oops. Small explosion. And then to that we just add an effects, and this would be a particle system. Right. When you attach a particle system to another object, it always gives this pink these pink quads, but we can change that by going into the renderer option and then material, and we can go back to the default particle, which is always in there. That's fine. Now this is just a little explosion, so I don't want the speed to be very high, so I'm going to make that 1. Right. And I want it to go in all sorts of different directions as an explosion, so I look at the shape and change it from a cone to a sphere. Right. Now that's altogether too big, so I'm going to take the lifetime down to 1 and the mission down to 1. Right, so now the speed is still too high. Okay, and I think I'll change the color. That's fine. And I'll change the start size to something perhaps a bit too big. Right, maybe that's about right. Now I don't want it to loop, I just want it to run once. So now I've got my particle system. That'll do. That's a small enough explosion. I've also found some sound clips here, so I've got a small explosion sound clip that I downloaded from the internet. I can put that in there. Right, so that's my small explosion. Now I want to be able to create these as and when an explosion takes place. So what I'd need to do is put that in the prefabs folder, and then I'd have a small explosion ready to make. However, in true Blue Peter fashion, I've created some small explosions and I've messed about with it to my satisfaction. I've also made a big explosion. It might be worthwhile looking at this. Right, so this is what my big explosion looks like. Stop that and find it. Yep. And simulate that. Right, so what I've done here is I've created one particle system and I've put a subsystem as a child of that. Now this big explosion here, the main one, causes this red cloud to be emitted, but it's also got sub-emitters on it. So when the explosion starts, it also produces these sub-particles, which is the subsystem, which means that every particle as it's created, creates its own sub-explosion of these white particles that fly fast in lots of different directions. So that just adds a little bit more to the explosion. Quite impressive, I think. Right, so we've got those explosions. I've also added a sound to it, of course, just by dragging the sound on. So those explosions are there, ready for us. So let's go back to the code now, and instead of just seeing what the name is, we'll just comment that out for the moment. So we'll check now if other dot game object dot name. So it was my ship, which is the name of the mesh that the collider's attached to. Right, so it's hit the ship. So we might change this later, but what we're going to do now is to destroy the ship. So let's put in destroy other dot game object, and we'll destroy this as well. We don't want the missile to survive, so this dot but before we do that, we're going to instantiate an explosion. So we'll need to put a reference up here. So I call that Big Bang. And I'm going to instantiate one of those here. Actually, put so I'm going to create a Big Bang at the so this is why I have to do this before I delete the object. That's really rather relevant, but we have to put it in. And we're going to destroy it after 5 seconds. And then we're going to destroy the game object itself. Right, so if all's gone to plan, it should detect, hit my ship, it's going to destroy the ship, and it's going to create a Big Bang, and it's going to destroy that bang after 5 seconds, and then it's going to destroy this game object. So let's just check the code. Right, looks fine. Does it work? Here comes doom. Well, alright. Yeah, it's just destroyed the that game object Right. And we wanted to destroy Defender. So I'm going to look for that privately. But right, and in the start I'll get it to find it. Right, so now it's going to find the main ship, and I'm going to, instead of saying that, I'm going to put Defender. Right, so then it should destroy that the main object. Let's see if it does it. I've made a mistake. Right, so looking at my missile code, I need to add some other things in here. Right, so my big explosion will go in there. That's why I didn't get a very impressive result, I guess. Oh, that's more like it. Good.